and welcome to Brand and Becoming. I'm Keisha Sheikh, the LinkedIn Visibility Partner. I help founders and C-suite leaders turn their experience into visibility, authority, and real opportunities. Today we're talking about something that's not just trending, but generally shaping the future of the UK economy, and that's FinTech growth, regulation, and where the real opportunities are. I'm joined by Chris Aruliah, Chief Commercial Officer at Agant, where he's leading the commercial strategy behind a UK-based GBP stablecoin. Chris has built a career across FinTech, crypto and institutional markets, working with banks, funds and global partners. Chris, welcome. Great to have you here.
Hi, Keisha. Great to be with you.
Thank you. I'm excited to get into this, and I've not had someone on, I suppose, with your experience yet, so I feel like it'll be good to get into it, and hopefully for those that do listen and watch, they'll get some real value out of it. So if we can just start with you, for anyone that maybe hasn't come across you yet, I know a lot of people have within the space, but for those that maybe haven't, what do you do and what are you building with Agant?
Yeah, so I lead our commercial efforts at Agant, and Agant is building a GBP stablecoin, or soon to be launching a GBP stablecoin, weeks away. It is exciting. Yes, we've been building for well over a year now, so it's good to get to this point. And we're looking to be the leading institutional stablecoin in the UK. We've been working with a number of companies, ahead of launch to understand what the demand is, what their requirements are, and working with them to, address those requirements. And so, yeah, we're also quite excited to go live and start helping those in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even from our conversations before, it's really cool what you're doing. And I think hopefully we can delve a little bit more into it, and I suppose what you're working on, but also what you're trying to achieve. So you personally have worked across FinTech, crypto and institutional markets. What would you say the biggest opportunity in the UK finance right now has kind of that most leaders are underestimating? Is there anything that you're seeing in terms of the opportunity?
So I think it is the topic we're going to talk about, but also digital assets in general is a huge opportunity for companies and the UK. So if we look across the spectrum of not just stable coins, but for example, asset management in the UK, which is a very, it's an industry that's been around for a long time, and it's something we all use in one way or another. But asset managers are grasping, how digital assets can transform their business and looking to tokenize funds. You've got, already in the world today, stable coins being used hugely for cross-border payments and users trading in trading operations and such like. So there's many aspects to that, but digital assets broadly, in terms of how it can transform existing processes, bring efficiencies, new products and services that can also deliver new revenue streams as well. That's, a huge opportunity that I think people are now grasping and getting behind.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say that there's more people are getting behind it now, and how are they getting behind it? How are they starting to learn more about it, or what would you say the change has been?
Yes, I'd definitely say more people are getting behind. We're definitely seeing that in terms of, engagement that you get from more traditional firms. I know we'll sort of go on to this, but I've been in this space for about 10 years now, starting 2016 with a startup called token.io. Which was an early tokenization solution. So if I think back to then and the type of engagement we got back then versus now, it's very, very different. And so the conversations we're having are very real. They're very tangible, with companies actually wanting to do real things, projects that are, funded, and, you're working with execs who, are needing to solve a problem, and they're understanding that the blockchain and digital assets can do that for them. And so this is very different to a few years ago. We're also seeing it in the media. There's obviously a lot of talk and a lot of discussion. In fact, we were at the House of Lords today. Tom, our chief, he was giving evidence as part of the Financial Services Committee looking into stablecoins. So it's being talked at, in Parliament. It's being discussed in the media. So there is a lot more, let's say, discussion. I won't use the word buzz, but there's a lot of discussion and interest. And so I think that is, what makes it very different now to, let's say, how it was even a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And from what I can see, even from with what I do and speaking to a lot of different people and a lot of different businesses, a lot of organisations experiment with innovation, but they struggle when it comes to actually scaling and kind of making something of it. From what you've seen and all your experience, what separates those who actually execute from those that stay stuck? Maybe they kind of can't kind of actually innovate, or they've got all the ideas, they're trying, but they're just not moving forwards.
It's a really good question. I think there's a few things there to unpick. One, firstly, when you're an innovator, especially when you're in a sort of pioneer environment, as I call it, you're working in something that's not developed. It's developing, and so one of the things that I think is central to being successful is having your vision and sticking to it. So with Agant, the vision is to bring GBP on chain. So everything we do in terms of pound sterling transactions, particularly in the city, to bring that on chain. So that's the overarching vision. But then underneath that, as part of building out a company like this, you'll often face, directions of travel that you go down, and then you find, maybe that's not the right direction. But the trick is to be able to switch quickly. And I'm not talking about pivoting. I'm talking about recognizing that, a path you've gone down may not be the right one, but identifying the correct path that you should be on and switching to that very quickly. So that's about, building fast, identifying quickly whether the direction of travel is right or not, and then, having the ability to switch, which is not something you can do in a large company, but when you're innovating, that's, what you have to be able to do. And, there's endless case studies of companies that have done that, that are huge successful companies today. The other thing I think is when you're a small company, you could spread yourself very thinly. It's very easy to come up with lots of great ideas and try and do all of them. It's often very tempting, but trying to stay focused on your key ideas and get those down first, win with those before you move to the next one. Or, if you're lucky enough to add more resources or what have you, then, tackle it that way. So certainly what I've seen before is, where companies have come unstuck is they're trying to do too much, and they're trying to, the great vision gets clouded and it gets, a little bit complicated. So try and keep it simple to start with. And then I think the third thing is be practical, be pragmatic. You've only got so much bandwidth, you've only got so much resource, you've only got so much demand. Be in tune with the resources you have and the demand you have, and try not to overshoot on that. So just be practical. And maybe a fourth thing, which is to be balanced with startups that have to move fast, is you do need a degree of patience. Sometimes things don't work as quickly as you think they're going to work. But stick with it, because they do eventually happen. I mean, I have a general theory based on, my career, which is tech change or tech innovation usually follows a 10-year cycle, 10, 20-year cycle. And that really goes back to, my early days when, I was in a tech company and the internet came along, and, back then we were building products for this thing called the internet that no one really understood. I mean, even saying that now sound bizarre, but that's how it was. But now if you look back, and we see companies like Amazon and Google that didn't exist when the internet came, they were companies that were born out of it. No one questions, now the path they've been on, but that's taken some time. Even, at the likes of Amazon, which started off selling books, no one could see that someone selling books over the internet is now building rocket ships to go to Mars. That's the innovation, but that's taken 20 years. But also, to the point I've been making, it's, Bezos had a vision and did things in steps, when they had the resource to do it. But that's happened over a long timeline. So, patience is part of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that whole patience piece, but also being adaptable and knowing when to pivot is kind of really important. And I've had quite a few conversations lately around AI and kind of people may be worried about their roles or kind of what that's going to change for their organization, or what it's going to mean. But I think one of the key things around even AI is around adapting with it, isn't it, and kind of utilizing it or getting the most out of it rather than being scared of it.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can just share a story, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So so we use AI. We use AI to code and develop. So it doesn't mean we need an army of engineers. So that's one area we use it.
Yeah.
But
it's really good.
yeah, and it's very, very powerful. But here's a funny story. So we've got an intern working for us from St Andrews University, and
Amazing.
yeah, he's brilliant. He's just like really on it, really smart, very, give him a piece of work, he does it really quickly. But he started using AI for a lot of what we need done. But here's the interesting: he's a classics student. He's not trained in computer science or anything like that, but he's taught himself to use AI. And now, if we want anything done, we ask him, and he uses AI to help him in that. Now, AI will come up with, I don't know, 60, 70% of the answer.
Yeah.
And then it's a combination of teamwork to get that kind of refined. But it massively speeds up our process. But in this instance, we would hire way more of him to use the tools, in terms of that improvement of productivity. But when you're building a company like this, we're out busy doing our stuff, and we need people who can run those tools and who can do those things, but use them smartly and effectively.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think on the one hand, yes, AI definitely is replacing in some parts, but it's also adding in other parts.
And those who use it like to their advantage will still be in a role or be able to kind of grow with the business, because
100%.
like you said, he'll become sticky to the company because he knows how to utilize it, and kind of it's all about learning, isn't it, how to prompt it, what to say, looking at what you're getting back, and then kind of constantly working with AI to shape it to get what you want from it. But he will be sticky now because he knows how to get the most out of it.
Exactly. And I think that that is true across the business, even on the engineering side. It's not a case that we're not going to have engineers. We do have engineers, but these tools can be used to massively speed up productivity.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, like in that example, it just shows, doesn't it? And I think maybe people that are more afraid of it or still aren't kind of even trying to utilize it, even things like research, or like how you were saying, kind of not trying to be too broad as a company or going down all these different lanes and actually prioritizing. You can even utilize it for things like that, can't you, with researching which is or kind of getting ideas of which is the best route to go down, because again, a lot of the times you can end up with all these different ideas, especially as like a startup or as a growing company, and not get going with any of them because you've got too many ideas in your head. Whereas actually you can utilize AI to let you know which route to go down as well.
Yeah,
which I think is really good. And something I personally speak a lot about, given what I do with helping people with their personal brands, is imposter syndrome, because a lot of times, no matter what level of role somebody's in, I have a lot of times C-suite kind of CEOs and founders reach out to me because they want to be more active with posting or public speaking or whatever it may be, but they struggle with imposter syndrome, and they let that kind of hold them back, especially at a senior level. But how has that shown up for you, or has that shown up for you in your career, and how have you navigated it if you have experienced it?
I have experienced it, yes, and I think we all do. I think it's natural. I think I probably experienced it throughout my career in different places in different levels, but where it really stood out for me is when I did join Token. I was the first employee in Europe. Startup.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, literally had a phone and a laptop and, started building out the business. And as we, found clients and, raised money, we, built a team. And I remember very clearly back then hiring people and then had this team that I was running. And and I do think, you know, and the team I had were an amazing team that, you know, some of them had way more experience than me anyway. And then you naturally feel like you're not the right person to be leading this. But you know, you've earned it. You've got to that position. Someone's given you given you the role, and they've got faith in you to do it. And so the key is to have faith in yourself. And often we doubt ourselves, and that's a natural human thing, I think. And I've certainly had that in the past. But really is part of growing and learning as a person, because you know, you don't grow unless you've actually, you know, done those things and you've experienced those things, and you learn as much through, if I can use the word failure, as you do through success. So you're not going to get everything right. And that, even, you know, as a leader, one of the things I remember struggling with, or not struggling with, but trying to come to grips with early on, is decision making, how you make fast decisions. And all the good leaders I've worked for always used to seem very good at making decisions very quickly and making the right decisions. But looking back, they didn't always make the right decision. And so, you know, just recognizing that, you know, even on that journey as a leader, you know, you might not get the decision right every time. But certainly my approach is, you know, I recognize if I have got it wrong, and I'm open if I've got it wrong. You know, I'll say to my team, and people that have worked for me will know that I will be out there giving a decision. But if it's the wrong decision, you know, I'm really open to a team member going, "Are you sure that's right? Are you sure we should be doing that?" Or, you know, and then, you know, that sort of makes me think, and then, actually, you're right, we need to do it a different way. And having the strength as a leader to accept that, and not let your ego or your fear get in the way. But that's
huge.
also,
It's not everyone is like that, are they? Even from my own experience, I suppose it takes a certain character, or even just self-reflection to be like that, because if not, people always feel afraid to speak up, and then you can all end up getting it wrong because everyone's too afraid to say anything.
Yeah, because ultimately you're trying to make the right decision for the business.
Yeah,
through what you're doing, it's not the right thing, but yet people around you are showing you something different. Then the right thing for the business is for you to say, "Yeah, I didn't get that right, so let's do it that way." But also, what I've found is that helps grow strong teams, because then your team has complete trust in each other and in you, and you trust each other to work together. And that's the point of being a team. You know, the job of the leader is to lead. And leading means being out there in front, and also means getting stuck in, you know, with your team when things get hard, and, you know, being there equally, you know, finishing deadlines with them, and etc. But, you know, no leader is, you know, without, you know, they're on their own journeys as well. And then the point about imposter syndrome is that comes in often when you're at the start of that leadership journey, or that new role journey, or what have you. But you know, a big part of overcoming that is believing in yourself. Just believe in yourself because someone else has believed in you.
That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, believe in yourself, believe in your own abilities, and then, you know, where you feel you're weak, you know, take steps to strengthen those areas. You know, self-learning courses, you know, talking to others, mentorship. There's many things that help fill the gap, aside from learning on the job. So that's and that's certainly helped for me. You know, if I look back now, you know, having sort of been in that early role leading teams, and then, you know, when I went on to BCB, where I was hiring teams and building out teams and leading teams, you know, that didn't exist. You know, that then I had, you know, a much better grasp, but was also learning new challenges there, because on the exec team, and, you know, that was, you know, again, overcoming that. How am I on the exec team when I'm
you're looking around thinking, how am I here?
Yeah. But that's the way you grow, and that's the way you develop. And that's the way that you also reward yourself, if you like, in terms of, you know, improving as a person.
Yeah, and it is about pushing comfort zones, isn't it? And I suppose if you don't ever feel a fear, or feel a bit like, oh, a bit awkward, or a bit, you know, this is a bit, different or out of place, or whatever you want to call it, feel like, how am I here? Then you may not be pushing yourself enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we grow when we're outside our comfort zone. When we're in our comfort zone, we're going to stay there and nothing's going to change. But when we go outside our comfort zone, that's when we grow, and that's when we develop. And but it's like anything really, if you try a new sport, or if you try, a new hobby or whatever, at first you're not very good, but then, we're trying and training and you get better. And that's the same in the workplace, I think.
Definitely. Have you ever felt the imposter syndrome or self-doubt when it comes to posting? Because I know you do post content on LinkedIn, and obviously you've grown your following, and you've got a lot of followers now on LinkedIn. Have you ever felt that with putting yourself out there publicly, not just in a work setting, but online?
Yeah, I think I have in the early days. It's quite something to post your thoughts or your ideas.
Yeah.
But again, similar thing, as you do it and you get, reactions from people, it helps, encourage you to do more. So yeah, I think at first, yes, it is. But then after a while, you see that you've got people that look and read, what you're saying, and you think, oh, wow, okay, that's quite amazing. So that just spurs you on to do more. And obviously, if you're doing it, you've got ideas that you want to share, and you've got, valid things to say. And I think part of it is not being afraid to say it. Obviously, you've got to say it in the right way, particularly on LinkedIn. Well, anywhere really, but even more so on LinkedIn. But having the confidence to do that, I think, also develops the more you do.
Yeah, I agree. And with you, I just want to talk, I suppose, a little bit more around your personal branding side of it and visibility. So you've obviously built your following to 6,800 followers, and that's continuing to grow. How important would you say it is for C-suite leaders, or kind of leaders in general, to be building their personal brand, or have you done it intentionally? And I suppose, has that helped you throughout your career as well?
So I'd say at the beginning, I didn't set out intentionally to build it. I didn't sort of say, oh, I need to build my personal brand. It happened more through need, I suppose. When you're in a startup in particular, you need people to know you and need people to be aware of you. So, you do conferences, you post things on LinkedIn, etc., and you build that slowly over time. So I think it's a combination of online presence and offline presence. So offline presence being networking at conferences and events and such like.
So important as well.
It is, yeah. And then obviously where you get the chance to speak at those events and conferences, being on panels, etc. And it kind of has a sort of snowball effect. And then, what you find is over time, you have a profile on LinkedIn, and you have connections, and you're commenting on other people's posts, you're doing your own posts, and then that builds over time. So I think it started organically, but then there was a realization, hang on a second, this is there is a personal brand that has developed here. And I think that came to me in one period in my career where I would turn up at a conference or an event and people would come up and say hello to me that I've never met.
That. You're like, wait a minute, these people are in real life as well.
Yeah.
They know.
And they've read something I've posted, or it's sort of, I remember once we had a stand at one event and there was a company next to us, and the lady on that stand was looking at me, and she came over and she said, "Are you Chris Aruliah?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Oh, I follow all
so cool.
I'm like, okay, wow, never met you.
They feel like they know you as well, but you don't know them yet.
Yeah. So it's really bizarre. But
it's a nice icebreaker as well, though, isn't it? Because I think by the time you get to, let's say you're trying to grow your business, or even you're trying to network, in general, you're trying to grow your career, it's a nice icebreaker, because then by the time you get into an interview or a meeting or a business meeting, whatever it may be, partnership meeting, they already feel like they have seen a bit of you, or they know you, so it's not so awkward, isn't it? And I think for me, that helps a lot. And I always try and get people to even just post once a week, because you're leaving something there that people can look back on or kind of get to know you from.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and it happens over time as well. I wouldn't say it's an overnight thing,
Yeah,
but it doesn't take that long, I don't think. And if you're saying, some really interesting things, people will A, read that, and they'll B, repost it. So I follow some people that I haven't met.
yeah,
I comment on their articles, I forward their articles, repost, etc. Because if it's good commentary, I like to do
yeah,
that. So I share that with my network, and I think that's the beauty of LinkedIn and other social media platforms where you can do that, but particularly for work. And then that really helps. And I think at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is share information that's helpful to other people.
yeah. That's
Obviously,
it.
obviously what
And
we do
how
around.
I think that whole sharing information that's helpful is a key thing. I think it's something that maybe people have maybe slightly got wrong. Not everyone, but they really, if you just show up and be valuable to your network, to your ideal clients, to your prospects, or to your current clients, that's how you're going to kind of win, is by being a place of value, a place of resource. So like I know you do your own posts and articles, but then you also, like you said, repost and comment on relevant ones, because then you can always become like the kind of profile that's like a news channel for like the industry of like useful information,
Yeah.
which is also good.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly when you're in something pioneering like what we're doing with stablecoins, which is still new to everyone.
Yeah,
And well, it was interesting watching the House of Lords evidence that Tom, our lawyer, was giving, but some of the questions that we're
yeah,
asking. It's natural for people to be asking lots of questions, and we don't understand these things in everyday life, and even when I explain to friends and family what I'm doing, it takes a lot of explanation because it's not immediately obvious. So I think LinkedIn's a great place to share that information to help people understand. So certainly with my posts, what I'm looking to do is equip people with knowledge, give them information that is something we see every day because we're building things, because we're working with companies that are
yeah.
working on these things, but not everyone is. And so we can share that insight with everyone to give just help educate the market, help educate.
That's key. I think you educating the market, especially with what you're doing now. I think so many people don't understand it, do they? And that's not criticism to them. It's just that's not their world. They haven't been in that world. So I
Yeah.
suppose educate, is that what you're trying to do now then with Agant, and with what messaging you're putting out there, is kind of educating the market on things like
There
stable
is,
coins? And
yeah, absolutely. There is there's a lot of what we do that is doing that. So, for example, we've attended conferences and we've answered questions there. One example is the Association of Corporate Treasurers, where we've presented at their conference, and I think on the panel that we did, we got 80 questions from the audience.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So people are very inquisitive. So we're trying to provide as much information and clarity as well,
Yeah.
because it is, it's a confusing topic to most people. And it's kind of interesting for me because, it's not, I've been involved in other developments over the years. So mobile banking, more recently, I suppose, years ago, and then even the early days when the internet and e-commerce came along. So it's the questions people ask are very similar. How does it work? Is it secure? Why is it different to what I'm doing now? Those are essentially the things when technology change comes along. And when you're a tech innovator, it's second nature to you, but it's not second nature to everyone else. And trying to explain it in that way. So I think that's part of our job, is to try and help people understand that, and so that they can realize the benefits as well.
And I think some of those questions that you're getting asked repetitively, what I always try and do, and I know you're already doing these types of things, but turning those questions into like a post, because if you think you're getting asked it a lot, it's kind of more than likely somebody else will be thinking the same sort of questions. So those I think that's why I also love the in-person stuff. Is like the in-person conferences and events. You can then kind of speak to people in real life, ask them what they're going through, what they want to learn, or whatnot, what their feedback is, and then turn that into content as well, because then you've got that almost on there always, which is really important. And I think what you're doing with the whole education piece is important, because people don't know what they don't know, and that's where I suppose what you're doing is really important. I know when we've spoke before, and I know from kind of reading a lot of your posts and what you do, you're passionate about mentoring and kind of actually helping other people. So what advice would you give to someone trying to break into fintech or digital assets today?
The first thing I would say is that it's an exciting area to be in, because it is at the forefront of change in the financial sector. And if we even look at the years that fintech's been around, Revolut's an example. They've now become a bank. After, I think they started in 2015. So they've been on a journey. They started out as this FX company, and have just built and grown. So there's huge opportunity, and it's I'd say the first thing is have a look at the space and work out where you think you want to be. You might even be someone with a great idea that you want to start yourself. Don't be afraid to start it. It's really in your hands to do that. And then the second thing I guess I'd say is if you're unsure about it, it's certainly been for me a great career. I spent my early career more in the software business, so in a software tech company, and that grew to a big company, and then kind of switched into what we now call fintech, but it wasn't back then labeled with anything, because I could see the benefits of a new way of doing finance, either through the internet, online, or using internet technology. So that was always something that appealed, and then that's only grown, obviously. So I don't know what my specific advice would be. I'd say for me personally, it's been a great experience. I think it's got a long way to go, and I think the UK is ideally placed, to be a fintech hub, and it is, certainly is today, and is trying to be even more so. But the UK has been, a hub and a centre for finance, for a long time. And given the talent that we have in the UK, there's so much potential. So yeah, I mean, if people are looking to, embark on a career that combines finance and, leading edge technology, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, like you say, you've been enjoying it, but also it is an exciting space to be as well, isn't it? Because of how much has changed already and how much is likely now to change as well. So yeah, that's great. I've got a little segment called Brand Truth versus Brand Myth. So it's just a little bit of fun, but basically I'm going to read out some statements and you let me know if you think it's a truth or a myth and why.
Okay.
So the first one is the UK is falling behind in fintech innovation. Is that a myth or a truth?
I would border on myth. It would be easy to say it's a truth because we can get a little bit down about ourselves.
Yeah.
But there is still a lot happening here. Obviously, Agant is a company that's innovating, and I wouldn't say it's easy. It's definitely not an easy journey for anyone, not just in what we're doing. But you have so much around you. You have access to capital. You have, access to talent. You have, a good legal environment to work in. We're a safe, stable country. We find as Agant, we get a lot of support from politicians, and government is really trying. The government released their financial services strategy a while back. Rachel Reeves delivered it at the Mansion House, and if you look at that, talks a lot about fintech and digital assets. So there is a lot happening. I think. Yeah, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's good, and it's good explanations. Second one is imposter syndrome disappears once you reach C-suite. Myth or truth?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch.
Imposter syndrome disappears once you reach C-suite, so once you reach the kind of executive level.
Disappear. I'm going to say myth.
Okay.
Because I would say even people in C-suite roles, for example, if I were to go to a CEO role,
Yeah.
I'm sure there would be an element of me that if I stepped into that role, I'm not meant to be doing this.
Yeah.
I think it would be a brief moment if I had to be honest. But yeah, I think we're not all immune to it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And even from my own research, some of the most successful celebrities experience it all the time. And I think it's a sign that you're like a bit like that thing that we said, pushing yourself or doing something new, or like you said, it's like that whole thing of if you're not pushing yourself and then maybe learning from failures, you probably are just staying quite still and not really doing too much, whatever level you're at.
Yeah.
So the last one is, if you're good enough, you don't need to be visible.
That's a myth. Just being good isn't good enough, I think. There's a lot of good people out there. But yeah, no, you particularly if in leadership, you need to be visible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've seen it where, let's say, there are some really successful founders and they've managed to not be too visible. But now I think the way things are going, people do want to see the face behind the brand, or the kind of CEO, or the CRO, or whoever it may be. They want to learn more about the kind of who are you behind the scenes, and what are you trying to do, and kind of get more behind the story and the humans behind the brand as well. So my final question for you today, and thank you because this has been really helpful, but also I think just insightful for people who maybe haven't really delved too much into the world of kind of FinTech, or maybe they're starting to but not sure what to do next. If you could go back to the very start of your career, what would you tell your younger self?
Believe in yourself.
Yeah, that's nice.
I wish I'd believed in myself at the beginning of the sort of journey.
Yeah.
We talked about this in terms of imposter syndrome or self-doubt. I think we all have it. I struggled with that in younger years, and managed to overcome it. But yeah, if I could go way back, say believe in yourself and believe that you can do things, and don't let other people tell you that you can't do things. I think when we're younger, we're so impressionable. We listen to people around us, don't we? And particularly if we think someone in authority, tells us something, then that must be true. And I'd say the opposite. I'd say listen to yourself before you listen to other people.
Yeah. Follow, I suppose, your gut and what you want to do as well, because usually even if you don't always know everything at any early stage or at any point, I think your gut knows a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you maybe didn't get to say that you wanted to let people know about Agant, or what you're doing, and kind of anything that you wanted to share that I didn't manage to ask you or that we didn't get across?
All your questions have been great. I think we've talked about a lot.
Perfect. Well, if people want to connect with you once they've watched it or listened to the recording, how is best to do it? Is that on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is the best way. I do try very hard to respond to everyone on LinkedIn. Do encourage people to just reach out. I think my contact details are on LinkedIn as well. Some people do email me at my Agant email, so that's also fine.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure you're tagged in the posts that are coming out as well. So thank you so much for that. And for those that are listening and watching, I appreciate you. And I will see you next time for Brand and Becoming. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Keisha.
Bye-bye.